The story begins with a dark history. A woman walks down a sterile hallway. A nervous father waits for his chance. He gives his young son a warning. He tells Nick to help a girl. The father holds him very closely. They embrace before the woman leaves. Nick is told to keep moving forward. He quickly hides under a metal counter. Armed men suddenly storm into the room. Their ruthless leader finally reveals his face. Nick manages to escape down the hallway. He leaves his dead parents behind. The bald agent walks away victorious. Years pass as the story unfolds. Governments tested people with special abilities. The Nazis first experimented on these powers. Many died during these brutal early tests. Now an agency called Division hunts them. They try to weaponize these gifted individuals. People with powers are constantly tracked down. There are pushers who manipulate your thoughts, but the experiments usually end in death. A young watcher named Cassie explains this. Division stops at nothing to control everyone. Today, a new experiment officially begins. A doctor prepares a mysterious boosting drug. They inject a young female test subject. She slowly walks down a long corridor. A glass marble suddenly rolls across. The small sphere comes to a stop. Suddenly, the female patient makes a run. The bald agent watches her escape unfold. She pushes through the heavy exit doors. The agent immediately orders a massive search. They must capture the escaped girl quickly. 2 days later, in a dingy apartment, Nick wakes up from a restless sleep. He sits up and begins to concentrate. He uses telekinesis to float some dice. He grabs his jacket and heads out. He navigates the crowded streets of Hong Kong. He arrives at a local gambling spot. Men are busy rolling dice for cash. Nick asks to join the high-stakes game. The dealer reminds him of his debts. Nick begs for one more lucky chance. The reluctant dealer finally agrees to play. Nick subtly uses his powers to cheat, but the dealer catches on to his trick. Nick's life in hiding is quite difficult. He walks away from the game beaten. He returns to his apartment looking blooded. Two Division agents are waiting for him. They force their way inside his home. Nick remembers running from them years ago. One agent searches his meager personal belongings. They search every corner of the room. They are looking for the escaped girl. They show him a bagged toothbrush. They use a sniffer to track him. They interrogate him about the missing patient. Nick insists he knows absolutely nothing. The agents leave, seemingly satisfied for now. Nick checks the peephole to be sure. He immediately retrieves his hidden pistol. He grabs his phone in a panic. He stands ready for a sudden fight. But it's just a young girl outside. He yells at Cassie for breaking in. She claims she is here to help. Cassie tells him about a fortune waiting. She flashes cash to prove her point. They leave the apartment building together. They arrive at a busy fish market. The market is filled with exotic seafood. They weave through the chaotic, crowded stalls. They sit down at a food stand. Cassie explains her unreliable watcher abilities. She says the future can always change. Nick casually orders food in fluent Cantonese. He presses her about the mysterious girl. Cassie ignores him and eats her noodles. He demands to know their true target. Nick decides he wants no part. Cassie trails behind him through the market. He refuses to get involved with Division. Cassie suddenly has a violent, bloody vision. They walk on, unaware of impending attack. A tattooed man watches them very closely. A woman with a lollipop stares intensely. A chaotic fight suddenly breaks out. A bleeder attacks with a sonic scream. They run as glass tanks shatter everywhere. The attackers ruthlessly pursue Nick and Cassie. The lollipop woman calmly aims her gun. Another sonic scream shatters the market. Nick collapses, overwhelmed by the sonic attacks. Cassie cowers and covers her bleeding ears. Cassie envisions their desperate future together. Nick is unconscious on the ground. Kira floats lifelessly deep underwater. She's seemingly drowned in the harbor, but then she wakes up alive. Kira hides out among the boats. She struggles with her blurry memories. A nearby fisherman ignores her presence. Desperate, she leaves a bloody message. Meanwhile, Cassie waits in the streets. She nervously anticipates her next move. The crowd flows past her aimlessly. She sneaks into a secluded temple. Inside, monks chant their prayers calmly. The shrine feels strangely quiet today. She finds Nick lying there unresponsive. Cassie readies her gun just in case. But she meets an unexpected watcher. The Division agent stares her down. She knows all about Cassie's mother. The agent examines Nick's bruised body. She checks the severity of his wounds. His condition looks extremely severe indeed. The monks continue their rhythmic chanting. Suddenly, Nick wakes up screaming loudly. The intense pain overwhelms his senses. He writhes on the makeshift bed. Cassie watches him suffer in silence. She feels helpless in this situation. The darkness consumes the room completely. Nick finally manages to sit up. Cassie approaches him with her sketchbook. She presents a mysterious lotus flower. The strange flower seems to hold meaning. Nick stares at it in confusion. Cassie shares her mother's tragic fate. She explains the Division's cruel tactics. The agency locked her mother away. Now they both share a common enemy. They agree to work together now. She showed him a disturbing vision. The drawing predicts their imminent deaths. This grim future terrifies them both. Nick knows they must act fast. Meanwhile, Kira wanders the bustling market. Division agents quickly track her down. They grab her without any warning. She is forced into their car. The agent taunts his new captive. The tension inside the car rises. They arrive at a sunny terminal. The agents take her inside casually. Kira asks to use the restroom. She plots her escape in silence. The agent waits outside the stall. He confidently talks about her past. He brings up her murdered brother. His cruel words trigger her rage. Kira realizes she must fight back. She suddenly bursts out of hiding. She disarms him in a flash. A fierce struggle immediately breaks out. The two grapple across the floor. Kira drops the bullets deliberately now. The other agent rushes to help. Kira knocks the first man out. She grabs her things and runs. She speeds across the giant bridge. The city shines under the sunset. Nick and Cassie ride through town. They review her confusing sketchpad again. Cassie worries about the division's watchers. Nick tries to decode the clues. They notice a drawing of beads. This detail seems incredibly important now. Their driver chimes in with information. He recognizes the specific glass bead. The men confront a shady dealer. They corner him in an alley. The driver holds him at gunpoint. The dealer looks absolutely terrified now. He nervously answers their rapid questions. They finally get the answers needed. The group walks away with proof. They head towards the Neon District. Nick matches the sign to her drawing. They arrive at a glamorous casino. The atmosphere is lavish and loud. A dealer performs tricks for patrons. He smoothly reveals a hidden card. Nick sits down to talk business. Cassie orders a simple soda drink. The contact examines their offered bribe. He studies the sketchbook with interest. The contact knows about Cassie's mother. He drops some very grim news. The truth clearly unsettles young Cassie. Nick then asks about the bead. The contact summons a waitress over. He reveals where she can look. He casually sips his martini drink. He listens closely to the man's troubled words. The woman looks at the man with concern. She sees a vision of a happy couple. He asks if the girl will return soon. Nick and Cassie share a tense, quiet moment. The contact listens to their urgent request. Nick looks at the contact with serious doubt. Cassie sits beside Nick, looking very worried. She reveals her drawing of the mysterious hands. The contact smiles at the strange prediction. Nick remains skeptical of her unusual abilities. The contact continues to explain her findings. She holds up a small, shiny metal bead. Cassie looks at the bead with intense curiosity. A sign for Kwantong Public Pier appears. Kira sits alone on the dark, empty pier. The dark highway stretches over the quiet water. Two strangers approach Kira near her red car. Kira turns to face the two mysterious strangers. Nick and Cassie quietly arrive at the pier. Kira quickly draws a gun on the strangers. She backs away from them, looking very scared. Nick tries to calm her down right away. Kira glares at Nick with deep suspicion. Cassie walks behind Nick, looking very concerned. Nick gently guides Kira through the busy market. Cassie starts drawing another vision in her notebook. Nick looks at Kira with genuine worrying. Kira looks around the market, completely lost. Cassie stares at Kira with a troubled expression. Nick tells Kira they must find the case. Cassie looks away, feeling overwhelmed by everything. Cassie tells them about her grim new vision. A ferry waits at the dark, quiet dock. The group quickly boards the crowded passenger ferry. A strange man introduces himself to Nick. Nick talks to the strange, nervous-looking man. The man looks at Kira with unwanted interest. Kira stands near the railing, looking very tired. Nick watches Cassie rest in the dingy room. The stranger casually reads a newspaper nearby. Cassie sleeps deeply on the uncomfortable bed. Cassie quickly sneaks out of the quiet room. Kira hides behind the frosted bathroom door. Nick sits down, looking worried and exhausted. The strange man leaves the room very suddenly. Nick stands up, feeling the tension build. He walks towards the frosted bathroom door. Kira stands under the shower, completely lost. Nick hesitates outside the closed bathroom door. He finally opens the door to talk. They suddenly pull each other into a kiss. Cassie carries her drawing notebook in the dark. She cautiously approaches the strange girl. The strange girl glares at Cassie threateningly. The strange girl shows her a new drawing. Cassie stares back at her, feeling very brave. Cassie watches the strange girl walk away. Cassie clutches a plastic bag, feeling very drunk. Nick opens the door to find her drunk. Cassie yells at the strange man angrily. Nick tries to calm the drunk Cassie down. Cassie collapses onto the chair in a stupor. The stranger watches her with clear amusement. Kira tells Nick they need a new plan. The stranger agrees to help them hide. Nick finally gets some much-needed sleep. The strange girl walks with her two brothers. She looks out the window, preparing for battle. Nick and Cassie take a quiet taxi ride. They walk down a quiet, deserted street. Cassie looks up at Nick, feeling very worried. Nick looks around the street very cautiously. He tells her they must find the case. Cassie listens to him with a serious expression. Nick leads her away from the quiet street. Monks gather in the busy, crowded market. Nick makes a daring phone call to Division. He confidently walks through the crowded market. Nick arrives at a fancy, quiet restaurant. He stands before Carver, feeling very determined. Carver's heavily armed men suddenly arrive. Nick quickly prepares his hidden weapons. He uses his powers to float them. Nick approaches Carver's table very confidently. Carver sits at the table, looking very calm. Victor looks at Nick with clear disdain. Carver smirks at Nick's floating guns. He mocks Nick's father's memory in return. Nick glares at Carver with intense anger. Carver continues to taunt Nick very calmly. Nick refuses to back down from him. Carver boasts about his superior watchers. Victor listens to Carver's cruel plan. Nick knows a fight is unavoidable now. Carver points a gun at his own head. Kira watches from behind the frosted door. Victor looks at Nick with a deadly stare. Nick quickly ducks as the shootout begins. He fires back as he falls to the ground. Kira watches anxiously from her hiding spot. Nick ducks behind cover as bullets shatter the glass. The attacker fires relentlessly at his position. Nick is violently thrown across the restaurant floor. He struggles against the invisible telekinetic force. The assassin pins him upside down to the ceiling. Elsewhere, Cassie waits nervously outside a shop. Carver approaches her with a cold, calculating demeanor. He tells her she already knows how this story ends, but she stubbornly refuses to accept his fatalistic vision. He warns her that trying to change it is useless. Back in the restaurant, Nick is still trapped midair. Cassie sits alone after the tense confrontation. Nick suddenly appears, having somehow escaped the fight. They quickly leave the area to find a safe place. They head down a dark corridor in a shady hotel. A contact waits for them by the reception desk. Nick cautiously approaches their designated room. He hesitates before opening the door to check on Kira. He finds her lying unconscious on the bed. He holds her close, worried about her condition. A flashback reveals her terrifying medical ordeal. She weakly leans on him, exhausted from the escape. Cassie brings out her sketchbook of psychic visions. She showed him a drawing of Kira holding a specific shoe. They are interrupted by their allies entering the room. The group discusses the urgency of their situation. They realize they are being tracked by enemy watchers. Nick frantically tries to figure out a counter strategy. A brief vision shows an old woman who will play a role. Cassie gets ready to leave the hotel room. The team looks out over the sprawling Hong Kong skyline. They need to locate the building where the drug is hidden. Cassie holds up her drawing to match the skyline. They identify the exact unfinished skyscraper from the sketch. Meanwhile, an enemy watcher is secretly tracking them. She observes their every move from a distance. Back inside, the team debates their next dangerous move. Nick paces around, trying to form a foolproof plan. He begins writing down specific instructions in letters. There are like questions how this chaotic plan will actually work. Nick realizes he must wipe his own memory to blind the watchers. The Triad Watcher draws her own psychic visions in a notebook. She tries to predict what Nick and his team will do next. She focuses her mind to see their hidden intentions. Cassie works on drawing the decoy items they will use. The Watcher clearly visualizes the highly sought-after syringe. She immediately goes to report her findings to her boss. The Triad leader learns about the powerful drug's existence. Nick finishes writing the crucial letters for his team. He seals them in red envelopes, ready for distribution. He feels the weight of the gamble he is about to take. He holds the final envelope destined for himself. In the bathroom, Kira tries to wash the blood from her hands. Nick comes in to tell her it is time to say goodbye. She fears they might not survive the upcoming ordeal. They share a passionate, desperate kiss before parting ways. Outside, Kira prepares to leave in a taxi. She looks back at him with deep concern. Nick hands out the sealed envelopes to his allies. He walks away, heading toward his own dangerous task. Cassie is left with her instructions, knowing the risks. Carver and his men wait for their moment to strike. They confront the team's ally on a rooftop parking lot. The elite tries to stall Carver's relentless pursuit, but Carver is determined to find Kira and the drug. He quickly moves out to track down his targets. Nick arrives at the docks to find the memory wiper. The Triad assassin prepares his weapon for the incoming fight. Nick stands on a boat, waiting for the procedure to begin. He explains the plan to the old memory wiper. He needs all knowledge of the plan completely erased. The wiper listens carefully to his unusual request. Nick insists it is the only way to beat the psychic watchers. He hands over the money to pay for the dangerous service. He sits down, mentally preparing himself for the wipe. He knows he will wake up completely disoriented. Meanwhile, the Triad Watcher continues her frantic sketching. Nick closes his eyes as the wiper begins the extraction. The man's hands glow as he pulls the memories away. The Watcher suddenly stops, losing her psychic connection. She realizes Nick's future has gone completely dark. At the same time, the suited ally arrives at the construction site. He shows a fake ID to the security guard. He gets directions to the worker lockers on the top floor. He takes the construction elevator up the dark tower. He steps out onto the unfinished, exposed floor. He navigates through the scaffolding and building materials. He finds the locker area illuminated by a single light. He opens the briefcase to secure the stolen drug. He locates the specific locker number mentioned in the plan. He inserts the key to retrieve the hidden syringe. The dark room feels eerily quiet and abandoned. Back at the hotel, Cassie gets ready to move the decoy bags. She steps out into the hallway, beginning her part of the mission. She opens her envelope to read her final set of instructions. She arms herself with 2 handguns for protection. Nick suddenly wakes up on the boat, gasping for air. He looks around, completely confused about his location. He finally arrives back at his apartment, unaware of the lurking danger. A mysterious woman attacks Nick from behind. She cruelly pins him to the ground. He groans, helpless against her sudden assault. Confident in victory, she inspects her prize. But soon, hostile thugs interrupt the scene. She turns to face the new threat. Nick struggles to remain conscious below them. Using telekinesis, she prepares for a fight. Elsewhere, an older leader presents a briefcase. He discusses their dangerous ongoing mission. Meanwhile, Cassie receives a very tense call. A rival telepath tracks her every move. Seeking safety, Nick and Cassie keep moving. They hurry through the dim building corridor. In a suite, an agent prepares medicine. He readies an experimental serum for Kira. The powerful drug quickly takes its toll. He coldly examines her discarded agent ID. She gasps, completely overwhelmed by the side effects. Her ruthless handler watches her suffer mercilessly. Later, a disoriented Kira attempts an escape, but he easily manipulates her fragile mind. Another telepath searches for hidden targets nearby. Cassie nervously shows Nick a new premonition. She breaks down, terrified of the future. Nick strongly insists they can change fate. He tells her to stay completely hidden. Nick refuses to accept their predicted doom. He embraces the frightened girl to comfort her. Accepting his mission, he prepares to leave. Her drawing explicitly predicts his impending death. Cassie sets off alone into the night. She navigates a long, empty pedestrian tunnel. Her enemy accurately sketches Cassie's exact location. The ruthless hunter closes in on her. Unaware, Cassie continues her solitary, dangerous journey. She soon reaches a bustling, crowded market. Desperately, she attempts to predict her survival. She slips into a nearby, quiet restaurant. Hiding in the shadows, she holds her breath. She carefully surveys a dim storage room. She slowly sneaks past a glowing refrigerator. Suddenly, a wave of fear washes over her. She spots the tiger boxes from her vision. The enemy telepath suddenly corners her. She aims the weapon directly at Cassie. Trapped, the young seer faces her executioner. Just in time, an ally strikes the assassin. Meanwhile, Nick boldly marches into enemy territory. He arrives to confront Kira's powerful handlers. The calm handler waits with a drink. Nick finally comes face to face with brainwashed Kira. He desperately tries to spark her true memories. He reminds her of their shared past. He pleads with her to remember the truth, but she coldly denies ever loving him. Nick is completely devastated by her rejection. He realizes the serum has erased her completely. The smug handler enjoys Nick's emotional defeat. He prepares to leverage this painful victory. Soon, the factions move to a new location. Kira sits silently as they drive away. A captive Nick stews in quiet anger. They arrive at a massive, unfinished skyscraper. The handler leads his prisoners inside the site. Nick is shoved roughly into the trunk. The group takes a shaky construction elevator upward. They step onto a highly exposed upper floor. The telekinetic agent confidently leads the way. The handler issues final orders to his team. They prepare the valuable serum for the exchange. The telekinetic stands ready to defend the case. Suddenly, rival gang members surround their position. Heavily armed men aim from higher vantage points. The rival leader demands the valuable drug immediately. A massive explosion violently shatters the tense standoff. Mercenaries plummet through the collapsing bamboo scaffolding. Kira scrambles to find cover amidst the chaos. The telekinetic fiercely scans the smoky battlefield. Intense gunfire echoes through the concrete structure. The telekinetic violently throws an enemy backward. Down below, Nick desperately breaks his handcuffs. Freeing himself, he escapes the car trunk. He rides the elevator up to join the fight. Kira sprints away from the deadly crossfire. She is cornered by the relentless rival gang. Outnumbered, she slowly raises her hands in surrender. The telekinetic agent brutally dispatches another attacker. Enemies fall against his overwhelming telekinetic power. He glares, daring anyone else to approach. Suddenly, Nick attacks the telekinetic from behind. The two powerful men engage in brutal combat. They trade vicious blows on the dusty floor. The agent uses his abilities to stun Nick, but a sudden sonic attack incapacitates the agent. Nick covers his ears, agonizing over the sound. The rival leader prepares to finish them off. Nick struggles to recover from the brutal fight. More heavily armed thugs storm the unfinished floor. They rush forward to secure the disputed serum. The armed thugs open fire relentlessly. Kira watches with a blank stare. Carver confidently steps into the room. He viciously grabs Nick's bloody throat. Nick struggles helplessly in his grip. The rival leader mocks his defeat. Desperate, Nick looks at brainwashed Kira. He silently begs her to remember, but her eyes remain completely hollow. She shows no sign of recognition. Carver's mind control holds her tight. Seeing no hope, Nick seemingly perishes. His lifeless body hits the glass. He lies motionless on the floor. Convinced he's dead, the villains leave. Rain begins falling on his corpse. Suddenly, Cassie appears with an umbrella. Nick gasps, revealing he faked it. The two regroup in the warehouse. She casually retrieves a hidden suitcase. Nick eagerly snatches the real serum. Their clever decoy plan worked perfectly. He explains his fake death trick. They finally leave the construction site. Meanwhile, Carver's private jet flies away. Inside, Kira reaches into her bag. She pulls out a red envelope. A hidden photo triggers her memories. Nick's written note commands her revenge. Unaware, Carver sleeps soundly nearby.